You only need to know me. I will be the one.
So there appears to be a hierarchy of cruelty when it comes to the celestial dragons. We all thought, ever since Sabaody, and seeing how the celestial dragons treat their slaves and generally humans or humanoid peoples like the fishmen, that the celestial dragons view as beneath them. We all thought that these regular celestial dragons were the peak of evil as far as characters in One Piece go, only to find out that beyond Saint Figerland Garling, who has the power to pass judgment on even celestial dragons, there is a greater evil that feels absolutely nothing. Mu or Imu, the king of the world and the celestial dragons, the One Piece god or pretend god, most likely written as a what if the devil defeated or became God. In chapter 1086, we see a flashback of Imu addressing the five elders, the five elder stars or planets as some are calling them given their reveal as planets. Depending on the translation, Imu tells them to test the Mother Flame or Flame on Luzia Kingdom, the Mother Flame being a weapon created by Vegapunk, and given the destruction of this weapon, its capacity to wipe out an entire island. I've compared it to a president pressing that big red button, dropping a nuke on a country of unsuspecting people simply for being dissidents, simply for disobeying a will that they did not know existed. The will of one king of the world, the will of God, and quite possibly the will of a child. Yes, you heard that right, a child. That is one possibility for this video about Imu's true identity, which we'll get to at the end. But first, let's consider two other possibilities as to who or what Imu could be. An alien or demon from the void, all that the void can hold, or a child. Imu just might be an alien from another world. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to be conquered by alien visitors? That an advanced civilization might descend upon the human race or the sentient and conscious inhabitants of the One Piece world and view them as inferior. Alien rulers would be, and would see themselves as akin to gods, immortal gods among mortal men. I would argue with the reveal of Imu Nerona's or Nerona's potential immortality in chapter 1086, that someone that lives forever, for all eternity, would also come to view those that live short and fleeting lives as inferior to their own existence, insignificant in their existence as if an insect, and if you become immortal, then you are practically a god. But Imu refers to the Mother Flame in chapter 1086, the thing that appeared as a shadow over Luzia Kingdom to destroy it. I might wait for another video to expand my thoughts, or maybe you guys should catch whatever live stream I do in the future. That shadowy object that appears in the sky could be many things, but I can't get to all of them in this video. I've seen some say a cloud, an ancient dragon, or a UFO. A cloud that you can control comes from a weather egg, and since Vegapunk created what destroyed Luzia and there is a hatched egg on Egghead Island, this could be the connection. A massive ancient dragon might work, since some people, including myself, had wondered in the past if the ancient weapon Uranus could be Kaido and his mythical Zoan Devil Fruit, which we now know not to be the case. But the symbol of the world government is a divine dragon claw statue, and maybe the world government has recreated or cloned an ancient dragon from the past. And the fire of this dragon ties into Imu calling it the Mother Flame, flame and so dragon fire, making Imu a dragon rider. But I do think the divine dragon claw statue and the so-called hoof of the celestial dragon, and so the hoof of a real dragon, tie into Imu's potential devil character and inspiration or devil fruit, since the devil is connected to a big red dragon in mythology. And so the last option that really stood out to me was Mother Flame, Mother Ship. Mother Ship being a name for a UFO, an unidentifiable flying object, which the Mother Flame is. A UFO mothership is essentially the headquarters, discussed recently in the news as objects which appear to defy all physics. They could be probes from an extraterrestrial parent craft, it is said. This parent craft is the mothership, a UFO. And speaking of aliens, we know that there are alien-type figures in One Piece, and we never ask ourselves, where do they live? Where exactly do they come from? Do they really live on the moon, or do they come from other moons or planets or solar systems even? Galaxies. Space pirates that could allow Luffy to continue his pirate journey when One Piece is over. Imu could also be from another world. The deep, dark emptiness of outer space. The void. But this is my least favorite idea for what the Mother Flame and Imu could be. I prefer the other few ideas that we'll address now. Ever since we saw King Cobra's reaction to Imu identifying as Mu, saying Mu will speak to you now as if someone else was there besides Imu and Erona, that Mu is one of the 20 kings or another entity entirely. People have wondered if Imu is more than one person. Mu meaning nothing, void, nothingness, the great empty, a nice connection to the empty throne, and nothing sitting there, as I point out in this mind-blowing video about Imu and the Lost Kingdom, or Lost Ancient Kingdom on the screen here. Imu having another personality or entity existing within him named Mu takes us back to the theories of Blackbeard being more than one person based on Luffy and Zoro sensing others around affiliated with Blackbeard. A debate that still brews over whether it's Blackbeard's crewmates Zoro and Luffy are sensing, or whether it's another person in Blackbeard entirely. 2 or 3, or maybe more. Now, given that theory about Blackbeard, it does seem redundant that Imu would be the same situation. But when we look at Wano, as I point out in the Imu and the Lost Ancient Kingdom video, we see that Oda via Kaido hints at Luffy being more than one person now too, asking Monkey D. Luffy, who exactly are you? And then Zunisha saying Joy Boy has returned as if Luffy's Devil Fruit carries Joy Boy's will or spirit somehow. Or Joy Boy only existing when the right person awakens, the drums of liberation from the Gomu Gomu no Mi. That sound marks both Joy Boy's return and presence. And this might sound crazy, but there are growing questions of Nami's origin, a wild theory out there about Nami of House Nerona, the lost child. And when you look at this panel of Blackbeard, which led Luffy and Zoro to potentially acknowledge Blackbeard as more than one person, we see Luffy, Zoro, and Nami standing there. 3 people. 3 exclamation marks. Luffy and Joy Boy. Zoro has something strange going on with him given his Ashura and overall aura. And then there's Nami. Yes, the 3 first people to join the crew technically, I think. Maybe a reach though, for who knows if Nami is special. Maybe you're like me and don't want every Straw Hat or character to be this way. But however different the circumstances might be in terms of being more than one person, this might be true for Luffy and his Devil Fruit and the return of Joy Boy, Blackbeard having a strange body, and now the theory of Imu being more than one person and possibly a mixture of the kings of the past, the 19 or 20 kings that created this world, as marked by the 19 or 20 swords that are in front of the empty throne. If Mu is the name of someone else residing in Imu, then Imu is someone else other than Mu. Imu, as revealed by both Cobra and Ivankov, is the name of one of the kings of the past, one of the creators of this world. But if those kings are also creators, why do the Gorosei refer to Imu singularly as the creator? As if a single creator, a single entity. What if somehow all the kings of the past, the creators of this world, came to dwell in one body, a single entity, perhaps consumed by the void, Mu? There are such powers of consumption in One Piece, and even body sharing with Blackbeard's darkness, Kiribuzuma Devil Fruit, and even the Devil Fruit that allows the user to become a jacket and be worn by others, making them a jacket human. One of the things that stood out to me is Imu's eyes and a connection to one of the swords that was in the Lost or Phantom Chamber Garden. Cursed as in possessed like Cavendish when switching to and trying to maintain control over Hakuba. His alter ego or split personality. Some think a cursed sword taking control. Or if the curse's idea doesn't appeal to you given what Kozaburo says to Zoro about Enma, then the will of the blade overwhelming you and becoming your own, taking control. And so what if Imu is not one person because of this? To elaborate, I had an old idea, maybe mentioned on Twitter or somewhere else, maybe another YouTuber's stream or deleted video. But what if when you sit on the empty throne it possesses you? Or somehow Imu is channeling the spirit of the kings of the past through himself. Thus, the name of Mu instead of the original name Imu. The swords of the kings carry wills, and we've seen how swords can possess Cavendish with Hakuba. if it is the sword's will causing his eyes to change color. And that would explain Dracula Mihawk and his black blade Yoru. Would that also explain Imu sitting on the empty throne, getting another name called Mu, just as Cavendish got another name called Hakuba? Imu sitting before the swords on the ground before the throne as if the essence of one of those blades was summoned. Mu or Imu. Can the other kings speak through Imu, or whoever sits on the empty throne which is lined with the swords of the kings that originally created the world government and by extension this world? And since Queen Nefertari D. Lily appears to have refused to bow or join Imu, again as an oath or in his body, maybe that is why Imu as of chapter 1086 is after Vivi, to complete the merger, the fusion of souls, so they can all reside in one piece, one body, one being. For now, Imu or Mu then is incomplete, or maybe Vivi is needed for another reason. Given Imu's childish, evil brat-like response about destroying Lusier Kingdom, how Imu abruptly stated that he didn't care about how many people would die if they experimented on the island, I point out how this could be the perspective of a god toward mortal humans and people in general. The way that Oda touches on the French Revolution and the elites telling the poor peasants to eat cake, which they could not afford, dismissive of their existence. Earlier we touched on advanced intelligence of aliens, or now that I think about it, even how artificially intelligent machines might view us. But an ill-tempered child or very young adult person around Luffy's age, devoid of morality and proper parenting, might behave the same way. I do recognize that a person is defined by their maturity, rather than how they look or sound, and so even if Imu maintained the body of a child, wouldn't Imu still have the mind of a very old person? And given the hundreds of years that have passed, Imu shouldn't think like a child at all. So who knows what exactly is going on? It's possible that Imu is just spoiled, and so it's possible that the growing speculation over Imu is spot on, that Imu might very well be a child, a boy or girl preserved over hundreds of years with cloning technology like we've recently been introduced to, the transplanting of memories to remain who you are in a new body. A devil fruit power like Joy Bonnie's to repeatedly make you young again, or keep you young, or something else that has granted Imu longevity. Perhaps the immortality operation, the immortal surgery that Ivankov hints at being performed on Imu Nerona, one of the 20 kings and creators of the One Piece world. This would explain how Imu has lived for so long, and if this operation was performed on a child, then Imu would have a childish personality, with the wisdom or experience stemming from living for hundreds of years, since the Void Century. So an old soul, as the saying goes, an old soul residing in the body of a child maybe, which would be fitting given how small Imu looks compared to the size of a sword as seen here, in the garden, in the lost chamber. If you take that giant crown off Imu's head, which seems to be not a big head, but instead a crown meant to create the illusion of a taller silhouette, of a taller individual, an adult instead of the possible body of a child. Imagine the running joke of sad girl or sad boy versus joy boy coming true. The moon or darkness versus the sun. Imu versus Luffy. Since Saint Imu is revealed as being from the Nerona family, a former king that created this world, I point out on his stream for the spoilers that Nerona sounds a lot like the Roman Emperor Nero, who is known as one of Rome's most infamous rulers. Notorious for his cruelty and debauchery, he ascended to power in AD 54, aged just 16, and died at the age of 30. So he was a child, a boy, when his reign first started, and if the immortality operation had been performed on him, he would have remained a boy. Even if considered a man back in those days, today, he'd be nothing more than a boy. Also, and I like to say this often, but the devil is everywhere in Oda's story, and even the Emperor Nero has been compared to the devil. The Roman Emperor Nero was originally named Lucius, which means of the light or born of light or light bringer, the same as the devil's name Lucifer, the light bringer and morning star. It is said the serial set of numbers 666 refers to Roman Emperor. It's a possible misconception that 666 or 666 refers to the devil, many biblical scholars say. They believe that the number referred to in Revelation 13:18 was a code name for Nero, the Roman emperor who persecuted early Christians. The early Christians didn't just count letters, they assigned numerical values to each letter of a name or acronym to get the code name. It is also said that a particular Hebrew acronym of Nero's name equals 666. Calling Nero a beast, an enemy of saints as outlined in the scriptures, was certainly not a positive image, so they wanted to use a code. Christians of that era would have known to whom the code referred, kind of like the Will of D, and Oda has turned this story upside down. Imu's enemies are seen as devils when Imu is the devil. The Roman Emperor Nero is best known for his political murders, persecution of Christians, just like the D and followers of the sun god are perhaps persecuted by Imu. Nero's reign was malevolent in the eyes of Christians to the point where they believe that he will return as the Antichrist and bring destruction. Which is funny because just as I will later speculate on Imu perhaps returning, as he already has, or why Imu is making moves now, maybe Oda really did intend the return of Joy Boy and Gear 5 Luffy as the White Warrior, to resemble the resurrection of Christ or the return of Christ for the end of times, for that particular mythology of Christian faith. Whereas Imu dressed in all black serves as a black warrior and the Antichrist that is foretold in such legends. Emperor Nero ruled at a time of great social and political change, overseeing momentous events such as the Great Fire of Rome and Boudicca's rebellion in Britain. It is even said Nero fiddled while Rome burned during a great fire that he allegedly started. Fiddled while Rome burned, danced to music as the world came undone. Nero was motivated to destroy the city so he would be able to bypass the Senate and rebuild Rome in his image, just like Imu of the Nerona family might have done in the past with the destruction of the ancient kingdom and is continuing again today, starting fires and fiddling while the One Piece world burns, playing with butterflies in the garden of Pangaea Castle. Imu playing with butterflies in the garden, a child playing with bugs, a girl or boy maybe playing with butterflies. We see a butterfly associated with Doflamingo in the anime who also has an interest in eternal life. The immortality operation of Law's Ope Ope no Mi, and Doflamingo as a child was worshipped as a king by followers in a pattern that has been widely noticed as no different than the Gorosei, bowing to Imu. It is also interesting as I continue to push on this channel the Imu, Mu, Void, origin of dark justice narrative that Doflamingo's words on children that have never known peace or war have completely different ideas of right and wrong. Could this speech have also foreshadowed Imu, a child that has either never known peace or war? It seems like every Doflamingo speech hints at Imu's true identity, the speech about children and what they learn and come to think about the world, the Ope Ope no Mi and why it ties into the national treasure of Marijoa, whose power will fade over time if not preserved. Someone planning to erase or kill Doflamingo for what he knows, to erase the light of Doflamingo and Impel Down. Imu hovers over all of this in the background. And so what Doflamingo says about children that have never known peace or war, having completely different ideas of right and wrong. What if Imu has known both, peace and war, having lived for so long to experience all that humanity and the world has to offer? Again, immortal beings would be the closest thing to God in terms of an existence. Human life would feel fleeting and valueless over time, as you live and see billions or trillions of people die over hundreds of years, and you alone survive. The best and worst of humanity on display repeatedly, as you develop a contempt for their existence and no longer consider yourself human, just as the celestial dragons no longer consider themselves human, instead consider themselves gods. Imu surely sees himself as above the rest of the celestial dragons, and so beyond the regular gods, the god. Given the treatment of the celestial dragons by Saint Figolin Garland, a holy knight, who has the power to pass judgment on the gods, on the celestial dragons, Imu surely views himself as above the regular gods, as the god, as the only god. Given the Celestial Dragon title, Vegapunk cloning dragons for the world government, and the Divine Dragonclaw statue or monument of the Celestial Dragons, plus House Nerona that Imu belongs to, there are clear ties to Game of Thrones, different houses, different royal bloodlines, a child king Targaryen ruler of dragons, sitting on the empty throne, having conquered the other houses and made them join him or her. Either figuratively or literally, if these other kings or queens exist within Imu's void, an emptiness that swallowed everything, creating the Void Century. I also wonder if Law's family name, Water or Trafalgar, and Luffy's family name, Monkey, along with the Will of D, are royal bloodlines, I wonder, that opposed the world government in the past. And so House Water or House Trafalgar and House Monkey. The reveal of Imu and the immortality operation and how that surgery ties into Law takes us to another moment from Dressrosa, the perpetual child that could turn people into toys, erasing memories and history, that is also wearing a crown, a child king standing next to both Luffy and Law in this panel here. What if Law's power is needed to undo Imu's immortality? The final gear to be broken is Imu. This takes us to another theory about Imu being a child that was shared with me, and it comes from Reddit. This theory is called the Face of Imu, and I'm going to intermingle some of my own theories into this one, but the original theory can be found if you search for it on Reddit. The Face of Imu. We see a comparison between Tokyo's destruction in the manga series Akira and the destruction of Luzia Kingdom. The theorist behind this account points out some panels that caught their attention. The explosion that occurs in Tokyo kind of resembles the one that took place on Luzia Kingdom. Now, I personally have not read Akira, but I definitely want to now after learning its plot and how it ties into some aspects of One Piece and a post-apocalyptic world. Given what we learned recently about an advanced ancient kingdom on Egghead Island, Akira is a cyberpunk thriller about angry teenage bikers in a Tokyo that's been rebuilt in World War III's aftermath, who discovered a secret military project involving psychic children. In the year 2038, a police state, scheming politicians, religious cults, revolutionaries, and a secret scientific project all combine to produce an explosive mixture in Neo-Tokyo, a power that destroys the entire city. The rival groups all have their eyes on one prize, control of Akira, a boy of such destructive psychic ability that he has been held in cryostasis, or a cryogenic or frozen state, for over 30 years. So a post-apocalyptic world, ancient technology and knowledge, a childlike individual with enormous power, areas that seem frozen or cryogenic. It all sounds like Imu, and also I know there is an important boy in One Piece, Joy Boy. Would Oda want two boy-like characters to fight in the end, or someone that looked really old? Wouldn't it be refreshing to see a change in the dynamic of the ages of main villains Luffy is pitted against? They've all been middle-aged or older as far as I can tell. Now, the person behind the Face of Imu theory goes on to point out a few key panels of the ice chamber or cryogenic chamber under Merjoa, and the cryogenic chamber that held Akira, as well as pathways going underground to both chambers in each manga. Looking back at Akira as a small figure on the throne, just as Imu appears on the empty throne, it's possible Sabo and Cobra reacted the way that they did when seeing Imu on the throne, that it's not merely because no one is supposed to sit there, or because the person looked like Vivi, or because it was an alien. It's possible Sabo saw a child sitting on the throne. How comical would that be if a child was ruling the world of One Piece? Also, in the distant past, why would the immortality operation be performed on Imu? It has to be done voluntarily, right? In Akira was some sort of science project, and maybe Imu is as well. And that involved the Ope Ope no Mi. Giving Imu immortality was perhaps another way of preserving history in human form, just like Lady Toki sending people forward in time, or herself traveling forward in time from the Void Century, or the indestructible Road Poneglyphs. Moreover, Akira is said to have no personality, as he's kind of destroyed it with his overwhelming powers. His powers have replaced his personality, it is said. So maybe it's the same for Imu, given Imu's other name Mu, meaning void or nothingness, empty. Nothing is there, an empty shell. Akira has immense psychic powers, although from outward appearances he looks like a small, normal child. He is responsible for the destruction of Tokyo in the beginning of World War III. After the war, he was placed in a cryogenic state not far from the crater created by him and the future site of Neo-Tokyo Olympic Games. However, he was awoken sometime later in the future. Shortly after being awoken again, Akira destroys Neo-Tokyo, or the New Tokyo. Later in the story, he becomes Emperor of the Great Tokyo Empire. When he first appears, Akira has not aged. In decades, he was kept frozen, kept young. Akira is essentially an empty shell. His powers have overridden and destroyed his personality, as I said, leaving someone behind who rarely speaks or reacts to anything, with a constant, blank expression on his face. Expressionless, maybe dreamless, emotionless, uncaring and showing disregard for human life, like Imu. And as for Monkey D. Dragon asking why the world government and Imu only used the weapon that destroyed Lucia Kingdom now, or why they're making their move for the Great Cleansing now. Could it be that the empty throne has been empty for a while, but Imu has only just now woken up again, granted the return of past, ancient adversaries from the Void Century? Poseidon and Shirahoshi, Joy Boy and Luffy, someone or several someones or persons as Blackbeard, and then there is Queen Nefertari, D. Lily as Vivi, 3 Will of D carriers and an ancient weapon. Could Imu have also been cryogenically frozen, as we speculated, to preserve him for this return of the other ancient powers that threatened him in the past? Are there others that are only waking up now? Is it because of Luffy and Joy Boy's return and the moves he and other Ds have been making? Of course, prior to Gear 5 and the official return of Joy Boy, since Imu was actually around before we saw Gear 5 Luffy. It's also noteworthy that Akira is said to never speak or communicate, or hardly does, because this is true for Imu, who seems to let Mu speak instead. Imu at least only speaks to the Gorosei and maybe the Holy Knights, no one else. And so it's possible Oda is doing something else here, and telling us to ask ourselves, what if Luffy was evil? Imagine a shadow or dark Luffy like Dark Link, who is the evil reflection of Link. The cover page for chapter 1084, featuring Imu on the empty throne, does have Luffy as a king sitting on the throne. Again, in the same chapter we see Imu sitting on the throne, a boy sitting on the throne. And I've mentioned this before, but apparently you used to be an adult when you turned 20 in Japan, and so Luffy would have been considered a boy still despite being 19 now. Which makes a lot of sense because Joy Boy has the word boy in it. I want you to now imagine you told your friends that One Piece was not just a pirate story, but ever since chapter and episode 1 of One Piece, Oda has been planning a story about dreams and nightmares. That the protagonist Monkey D. Luffy that we know today has been sailing in the seas, shaping the world by pursuing a dream, whereas Luffy was evil. One Piece would be a story about a boy, or a young man pursuing a nightmare. So what am I getting at? When we see the world through Imu's eyes, it's as if we're seeing the nightmares of an evil Luffy. Think about how capable Luffy is, all that he has done and conquered on his path to become Pirate King, a king of the sea, and a parallel king to the king of the land, of the Red Line, the king of the world, Imu. 2 kings opposing one another. One dark, one light. 2 boys or young men or young people in general, with wild imaginations but differing only in their origin. Dreams versus nightmares. Our dreams as children can be magnificent. Our nightmares, however, can be terrifying. We caught a glimpse maybe of the nightmares of Imu. The terror Enel speaks of that makes Imu so scary as a god. That fear itself is God, the creator, as the Gorosei call Imu in chapter 1086, the creator of this world, the creator of all the nightmares and terrors in One Piece. This nightmare Luffy will set everyone free from, by raising the light of dawn, as if the sun's light was a pirate flag in and of itself, waving in the wind, bright lights flickering in the morning, like pirate flags from the ancient kingdom. This is how I imagine One Piece to end. Imagine Blackbeard, the fake Will of D as that theory goes, the fake darkness defeated by the Sun Luffy as a reversal of Ace's defeat to Blackbeard in the past. Imagine the real darkness of the world, though, that Robin spoke of. The Void. The king of night and nightmares, Imu, is vanquished by the embodiment of light, Monkey D. Luffy. What does not symbolize Luffy defeating nightmares, conquering fear. That is what is required of adventure, conquering your fears and making friends along the way. One Piece is in part a story about the journey of life. And so in terms of fear, things that are frightening, if Imu is the sea devil, the water devil, or whatever, then the end of chapter 1 and the start of chapter 2 makes even more sense. Ichiro Oda writes the following in a sort of epilogue after chapter 1 ends with a friendless Luffy starting a long journey, that after recklessly going out to sea with a little boat, this young man plans on making some friends and forming his own fleet of pirates. In another translation I see it say that Luffy challenges the very sea, which basically all pirates do. And we then see Luffy mention a disaster happening, or in other words, a nightmare occurring. And then a whirlpool came. Nature itself, Mother Nature, the sea, came and swept Luffy away, but somehow he survived and ended up in a barrel to continue his adventure, to continue pursuing his dreams in the face of all the nightmares he'd run into. What if this is Oda's story, constantly encountering nightmares and obstacles and overcoming them one by one? And so, one of the most memorable scenes that come from One Piece is when Luffy is laughed at during Jaya for his ambition and his dreams, that the Sky Island wasn't real. But Luffy would prove them wrong, as Blackbeard would go on to tell us that dreams never end. And so, let them laugh. In this world of nightmares, all we have are our dreams. Blackbeard and Luffy are two dreamers, though who knows what Oda has planned for Blackbeard, who cannot sleep, although he can still daydream. The Sea Devil is said to have created devil fruits, which we know are created from dreams. The sea, Mother Nature, is said to hate devil fruit users. Could it be that the sea hates dreamers, those that adventure too far, discover too much, dream too big? It just might be that dreams are the only thing that can counter nightmares, and nightmares counter dreams. A strong will decides which is greater, as Blackbeard speaks of the sun versus the darkness. Which will win? Dreams or nightmares? Luffy or Imu? Joy Boy or Mu, the Void? But as usual, we will have to wait and see. So out of these options, which do you guys like the most? Leave a comment below and let me know. Also, don't forget to like the video, share this with your friends, and subscribe. Also, if you have a Twitter account, feel free to give me a follow on there as well. Always make sure to respond to your comments and interact in at least some way. Also, make sure to check out the second One Piece channel I made. More videos are dropping over there this June as I start turning your comments or theories on YouTube and Twitter into videos. The second channel is on the screen, and the links to it will be in the description box and pinned in the comment section below. As always, there is more to come. Until next time.